everyone, welcome to my channel. Now we're taking our discussion essay 230 audit documentation. What's the effective date is? Effective date is 1/4/2009, generally known as working papers. What's the meaning of the audit documentation? Meaning is that records of procedures adopted, then evidences obtained, and then conclusions reached. We adopted the procedures for complying the law and regulations. Then we obtain such evidences by adopting that procedures, and then we conclude our audit. So it's all about the records of each and every step. Now we talk about the purposes. What is the purpose of the audit documentation? I divide it in 4 parts. First is before, second is after, then internal, and then external. Before is assist to planning and performing. Before we accept, after we accept, and before we start our audit, we plan how our audit should be done. So it assists how we plan our audit, how we perform our audit. Then it assists after we take 2 or 3 points. Like first, it's about future evidences, now, or it assists us as how we supervise or direct. It assists engagement team to accountability, that who is the person who do this work, or who is the person who review this work, dated this work, etc. Now we are on form, content, and extent of audit documentation. Such things, there is no fixed format. There is no standard format. So it's differ from auditor to auditor. But generally, I think it can be divided in 2 parts, like current audit file and permanent audit file. In current audit file, we take the calculations of complex situation or complex, and we get the evidences, and we get the significant matters. If we identify any significant matter, and if we take any significant judgment, then we take in current audit file. Permanent audit file, we can take in permanent audit file MOA of company if there is company, partnership deed if you audit of a firm, etc. Now we take on our discussion the form and content, which says that the assembling of audit file is an administrative process. So we can done this process after the completion of audit, after we dated our audit report, but it's specify the time you should compile and you should prepare your audit file, and audit documentation should be in file form. Okay, retention period is of 7 years. If law and regulation says retention period is for 7 years, but if law and regulations says for any situation that you should keep this more than 7 years, then you should follow this law regulations. Okay, then we are talking about the factors affecting the form content. What's the factors? The effect the form content and extent of audit documentation. Size and nature of entity. If the bigger size entity, then the documentation is required more and more. If you says about the risk of material misstatement, if any entity where risk is more, risk of material misstatement due to the fraud or error is more, then there is required more documentation. If then exceptional situation as arises, exceptional circumstances, like we are required to not adopt any particular law or any particular regulation, then you adopt more alternative procedures. So you document each and every aspect about this exception circumstances, what the circumstances, what the reason you adopted alternate procedures, everything you should document. Now nature of audit. Nature of audit procedures is also affect our audit documentation. Then evidence is obtained. This 2 point is also covered in meaning also. Then the most important is ownership. Ownership of the working paper. SQC1 says that audit documents is the property of the auditor. ICAI also give more guidance on audit documentation. So ICAI in its guidance says that the branch auditor is not bound. Branch auditor is not bound to provide his working paper to head office auditor. As the 200 and clause 1 part 1 of second schedule of CA Act, Chartered Accountant Act 1949 and SA 200. What this is about the confidentiality, that the professional should not provide client's information to any third party without the permission of client. So if any extract or portion which is required by law regulations, then you provide this working paper extraction, but otherwise you shouldn't give this working papers. If there is information which is related to client, then you shouldn't give this information to other parties. It's also discretion of the auditor that he can provide such extract or such portion which is required to any person, but it shouldn't be breach the confidentiality. Then we says about SS 600. SS 600 is says the using the work of the other auditor. If any auditor who uses the work of the other auditor and he demands that demand for the working paper, the alternate procedures is that you can fill up the questionnaire. You can obtain the answers of the question rather than you obtain the working papers. If working paper is not provided by the auditor, then the alternate procedure is you says the questions and he answering it. So it's all about the essay 230. We revise it in quick form. Very first is essay 230 is revised on 1/4/2009. Generally known as working paper, meaning is like records of the procedures adopted, evidences obtained, and conclusions reached. Then purposes is this four categories we can adopt it for our remembering purposes. Before is assisted to planning and performing, after is supervise, direct, accountability or future evidences. Now in internal is enable to conduct of the quality control review, and external is the enable the conduct of the inspection. Enable the conduct of the quality control review and enable the conduct of the inspection process. This is all this both is also the purpose of audit documentation. Then form, contain and extent. There is no fixed format, but we can divide it in current or permanent file. Assemble it after it is administrative process of assembling, so you can assemble it after audit report. Retention period is of 7 years. Factors affecting the form, content and extent is size and nature of entity, nature of audit procedures, risk of material misstatement. If any exceptional situation, then you define it. You documented it properly, how you deal with this. And fifth is evidence obtained. Now, ownership. SQC1 says this, the auditor, audit documentation is the property of the auditor. ICAI also give more guidance like branch auditor is not bound to provide the working paper to head office auditor. As a 600 says that using the work of the another auditor, in this you can adopt alternate procedures. You can fill up the questionnaire. For fourth point, essay 200 and clause 1 part 1 of second schedule of CA Act says about the confidentiality. So confidentiality shouldn't be breached. So you can say, you can adopt the alternate procedures for rather than you provide the working papers to any other entity. It's all about essay 230. Thank you very much.